Hello, thank you so much for being here. Tonight we're here to talk about the subject of banned books. Now, not a book about your favorite band like Florida Georgia Line or One Direction, but books that are no longer being allowed to be taught in schools. SFUSD recently banned 3 books from their high school curriculum. They were Letter from Birmingham Jail, On the Rainy River, and Heart of Darkness. Now, we have some really special guests here tonight to talk about these. We have a renowned author, Marlo McIntosh Apple, as well as a student from SFUSD, as well as a supervisor from SFUSD. So stay tuned for the rest of the show. On to the interview chair. Alright folks, we got a very special guest today. She's an author of a book on books, real original name. But please give a warm round of applause for our special guest, Marlo McIntyre. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I know you're really busy. You've got this new book of yours and you're going on tour with it.
I am. This is my novel.
Anyways, could you tell us a bit about your book? I don't know what it's about.
Yeah, of course. So
the title does not give away much.
I want it to be very mysterious.
Got it.
So basically, a book on books explores the recent SFUSD crisis. You know, they were trying to make sure that their students couldn't read certain books, and it's just terrible. They were basically censoring what they were reading.
Could you clarify for this audience, because they're not all locals, what SFUSD stands for?
San Francisco Unified School District.
And so, in regards to this topic, where do you personally stand on it?
Well, I am a former SFUSD student. I think that it's really terrible that they're not allowing students to read these books because I've had English teachers that have taught controversial novels, like the 3 that have been banned, in such a way that I've understood that the message is very relevant and that I shouldn't learn from some of the deeper historical issues in it. So the 3 books that they banned are Conrad's Heart of Darkness, O'Brien's On the Rainy River, and Martin Luther King's Letter from Birmingham Jail.
No, I'd have to point out, as some of my lovely viewers have said, some of these books don't exactly promote good behavior, not necessarily the greatest messages.
Well, I definitely agree with that, Johanna. I definitely think that there are some negative messages. Especially in my opinion, in Heart of Darkness, the depiction of the natives is just terrible, dehumanizing. It's extremely racist. But I would say that we have to understand, in order to teach these effectively, we need to understand that that depiction is just a relic of the times. And it's terrible, yes, but as long as teachers clarify that this is a part of our history and that students should not learn from that particular aspect of the story, I think we can continue teaching it. Because the message that greed corrupts, I think that's very relevant to our society, and that is more important takeaway than the racism.
So, if you're arguing that the pros outweigh the cons for this specific piece of literature, what would you say about works like On the Rainy River, which has sparked major controversy?
I would say that the major controversy from On the Rainy River comes from its promotion of civil disobedience as an act of bravery, and I know that many government officials do not like this because it does encourage citizens and students to potentially disobey their rules. But I think that it shows that beyond just civil disobedience, there are multiple types of bravery, and that's a very important takeaway for you.
That was very nicely said. Could you please elaborate how the story illustrates civil disobedience?
Well, yeah, so I would say that it definitely does promote the idea of civil disobedience because the protagonist finds himself struggling with whether he wants to avoid the draft and move to Canada. And he decides not to, but he feels like a coward because of that. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily explicit, but it is equating bravery with civil disobedience. And I don't necessarily think this is a problem, especially under this new presidential regime. We've seen acts of minor civil disobedience everywhere because people want to stand up and show that they're not going to take all these changes sitting down.
I assume you're referring to events such as women's marches and Black Lives Matter protests?
I am, absolutely. I think these are prime examples of civil disobedience in our society because they're not explicitly breaking rules. They're just showing that these are the rights that they want and they're not going to get taken away and they're not going to stand for them to be taken away.
Moving on to your the last work that was banned, Letter from Birmingham Jail was banned, if I'm correct?
Yeah, unfortunately.
This is the most controversial work they've banned.
Yes, now is the time then when youth need to hear Dr. King's message because the whole point of that letter is that we need to treat people equally and we need to eliminate social inequality because we can't let skin color or sexuality or religion dictate the way that we treat other people. And I think that this message is becoming increasingly important, especially with this new election, like I've already mentioned. The whole proposition of a wall and the immigration ban, it's just terrible, and we need to start teaching our youth the message that Dr. King is trying to explore.
That was really beautifully said. Thank you for introducing this idea to me and my... Yes? I believe that's all the time we've got today, unfortunately, but thank you so much for your time. Everyone, please give another round of applause for Miss Milo McIntyre.
Thank you.
Bye, Milo. We'll see you guys later after the commercial break.
Are you a feminist? Do you want to support women's rights? Then come buy these hats. They're only $20. You can buy them right here. You.
Hello. We are now back with two very special guests. We have a supervisor from SFUSD as well as a student from SFUSD. She goes to Lowell High School. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. You have a very nice hat.
Thank you.
Where'd you get it from?
I got it from Hats.
Wow. You shop there often?
I sure do.
Well, I wish we could stay and talk about that hat all day, but we have some more important issues to discuss. I hear there are some major problems with your English curriculum.
Yes, many schools are teaching outdated and just plain racist words.
Do you mind giving me an example?
The most prominent example I can think of is Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. It's a thinly veiled racist tirade masquerading as social commentary on abuse of power.
Wow. That is a scathing review, but Sophie, what do you think?
I see your points, but I believe these works are an important piece of our education.
But can't you see the racism clearly depicted in such works? Like, how can you be okay learning from such a despicable source?
Well, I can't speak for all teachers, but mine taught us to understand the historical context of the story.
How can you learn a good message from an immoral story?
I think that as long as we're taught to see it through a modern lens and realize the pros and cons of every story, there can be a positive outcome.
Wow. That sure leaves us with a lot to think about. Thank you both so much for being here. I will talk to you guys later. Now, let's go on to me. Thank you notes.
And now, time for thank you notes. Thank you to Mom and Dad for letting me drop out of high school so I wouldn't have to worry about reading books about human anatomy and darkness. Thank you to superintendents of schools for making schools super as they were intended to be by banning books. Thank you, portable telescopes, for helping me find my coins when I dropped them on the floor. It is so far from my head to the ground. Thank you to the final scene of 10 Things I Hate About You. I will never get tired of you. Thank you to Chinua Achebe for making people think both about racism, imperialism, and how to pronounce your name. Thank you to Webster's Dictionary for being such a great mousepad when I was looking up words. And thank you to the people of the United States of America. You have the opportunity to speak your mind about important issues, topics that matter, and give the children a chance to read what is important. Read important literary works that high-up officials have dictated are inappropriate. Take a stand, my man. And that's all we have for today, folks. I will see you tomorrow. We've got special guests Zac Efron, Joshua Kirshner, and Abraham Lincoln. See you then!